Hey there guys, what's going on? So March is currently underway for us now, and it's beyond time to start shaking off all of that crazy snow, staying out of that disgustingly swampy mud that gets left behind it, and thinking about all that, actual vitamin D consumption we're going to start getting here before too long. Oh, and of course, that whole music thing that I come here and bother you guys with about in all these videos and such and blah 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 all the time. That whole bit. Anyway, the year that's been 2015 so far has proven itself as a highly promising one, even if we are only about halfway into our third month of it. Sure, there have been some early disappointments or albums that are maybe half good or good for a few songs before falling off like a bad stock projection, but for all that, we've already had great contenders for Album of the Year, at least in my opinion, heartstring tuggers, fun rockers, and things that have been great in a multitude of genres, with the promise of only more to follow. 2015, I'm here to say it, I'm here to call it now. The tagline will be the year to be in. Mark it down on your calendars, ladies and gentlemen. This is happening. And today's installment only further proves that, as we have an indie artist who not only is returning with a new release, but arguably doing that thing the old guard of fans usually wait for. You guessed it, the return to his roots. Well, those of you who wait on pins and needles for that sort of thing, stop, gasping and collect yourselves. I'm going to just push on here by saying that yes, this artist is making a return to early form, and the results, dare I say it so early on before release, look incredibly promising. Today we have Michigan's own Sufjan Stevens, returning from his journey into the depths of electronic pop rock genre, melding peanut butter and jelly smeared together creations, to essentially do straight up whisper thin folk again with March 31st's Carrie Lowell. Largely inspired by the loss of Stevens' mother to stomach cancer and his relationship to her and his stepfather, Carrie Lowell takes a deep look into the themes of loss, earlier days of his life, and those explorations of confession and faith that Stevens has often been known for. But before I give away the whole thing, and without further ado here, let's go and get into this review. With Sufjan Stevens, and really any artist in this situation, making a concerted effort to return to your roots for whatever reason is a very difficult place to put yourself in. Creatively, if that's what your head dictates, then of course that's just what you're going to end up doing. But when it comes to fans or reviewers, this also comes with letting go of your preconceived expectations. One of the hardest things to do in the music industry, apparently. Carrie Lowell is not going to be in the gear of the Michigan or Illinois albums, and while its closer companion might be Seven Swans, this record speaks to a place that is both similar but also on entirely different ground. For one thing, the specter of death lurks closely beneath this one. Stevens has certainly covered that ground before with the likes of Casimir Pulaski Day, among others, but this one sinks closer to the chest with his mother's passing. The opening track, Death with Dignity, seems to speak for itself without really speaking in that regard, and is filled with lines like, I long to be near you, but every road leads to an end, your apparition passes through me in the willows, before segueing into a mournful sort of a chanting silence. It sets the tone as one that is certainly one of Stevens' most haunting put to tape. And while I certainly wouldn't wish a terribly raw event like this to be the driving force that sends Sufjan back into the waiting arms of his folk-heavy origins, there's something that's so warm and comforting about having his customary backdrop of double-tracked vocals, choiry background sections, and gentle instrumentation be the sails that gently guide Carrie Lowell down the stream. It reminds me of all the things I've ever really enjoyed about the quirk-heavy singer-songwriter, and if anything within this setting, those are the touches that feel like the familiar embrace in the midst of tragedy, the good memories in the midst of a man going through the hardest phases of grief and mourning. And songs like Drawn to the Blood and 4th of July definitely dwell on this subject with a world weariness that's heavy and almost hard to listen to with its grief. But not everything on Carrie Lowell remains in simply talking about the realm of loss. Songs like the title track and Eugene drift away in an almost mystical tangle of reminiscence and the bright light of memories from childhood and times now vanished. The ghosts in the gray of what's since gone and disappeared still linger and wait to fade back into the foreground, but there's an undeniable sweetness that lingers here too. And when all is said and done, together that's a mix of real and truly honest beauty that stays with you long after the record stops playing. My favorites from this one are the aforementioned Death with Dignity, Carrie Lowell, and 4th of July, along with the brilliantly somber initial single All of Me Wants All of You, and the closing piano-led plea of Blue Bucket of Gold. Sufjan Stevens has certainly made a resounding return to his origins of heavily rootsy folk and atmospheric songwriting, and while, yes, it's not this album or that album or what have you, it's its own album and one that deserves complete and honest separation to be heard as such. They may not be the best tunes he's ever written or some nonsense like that, but they carry an incredible amount of emotional weight and spill their grief like blood upon the soil. While it does make for an exceptionally heavy listen, it's absolutely heart-rending music in the best possible way, if there is a best possible way with that sort of thing. I give Sufjan Stevens and Carrie Lowell a 9 out of 10. But that's it, and that is all for me here, guys, with my quick little initial intro review to Sufjan Stevens and his upcoming March 27th release of Carrie Lowell. You'll be able to pick that up over, through independent retailers, through your Amazons, digitally through your iTunes. I'm sure his website will probably have it, his record label, Asthmatic Kitty. They're a great one to buy through. They're usually pretty good about giving deals and pretty cheap vinyl and things like that, so I would definitely check there as well, and definitely go and pick up this release because I think already it could definitely be one of the top releases for 2015. But I feel like I've been saying that a lot lately, so we'll just have to see how that year winds up first. But anyway, thank you again for watching this quick little review. I hope you are looking forward to the official drop date of this record as much as I am, coming up on the 27th, and keep it here, guys, for much, much more, because there is much, much more still to come.